Hi everybody, today we'll be discussing one of the very important aspects or error prone zones. We'll be entering an error prone zone where many students often make mistakes. The letters ing, as you can see over here, we often tend to mistake ing words with only verbs. So let me inform you firsthand that ing words are not only verbs, they fall into other categories also, like gerunds and participles. I'll give you a small exercise. Let's do that first, okay? And I will let you know why we are doing this and how this can help you in your reading comprehension skills also. So write a couple of words like playing, singing, dancing. Okay, what can you tell me about these words? Are these verbs, nouns, adjectives, or what? Pretty sure most of you will tell me that these are words falling into the category of verbs. But let me tell you, these are not only verbs, but all of them, depending on the usage, fall into the categories of noun, verb, or adjective, depending on the usage. Whenever a word behaves as noun and a verb, it is called a gerund, and whenever it behaves as verb and an adjective with the force of verb and adjective, it falls into participle. So it might be a little mesmerizing for you right now, but don't panic. We'll be studying this in detail and in enough depth to understand each and every problem, and you'll be able to tackle each and every problem after going through this entire video. How can this help you in better understanding any passage or your reading comprehension? Let's see. I'll give you a small sentence. Tom saw a monkey coming out of a kitchen. Okay, and let me rewrite this here. Tom saw a monkey coming out of a kitchen. These are similar sentences but not the same. What is the difference? There is one small difference, that is the placement of this particular comma here. So my question is, who is coming out of the kitchen? In sentence number, let's make this sentence number 1, and let's make this sentence number 2. Who is coming out of the kitchen? Sentence number 1 and sentence number 2. I'm pretty sure you must have given the correct answer, but let me elaborate and give you a little bit of the concept behind that. In the first sentence, coming is modifying or is qualifying the word monkey. Hence, monkey is the correct answer. Who is coming out of the kitchen? Monkey is coming out of the kitchen. But in this case, when we have a comma, coming is modifying or telling us about the subject of the previous clause. What is the subject of the previous clause? Tom. So who is coming out of the kitchen? Tom is coming out of the kitchen. So you see, a small comma can make a lot of difference. It can change the meaning of the entire sentence. So a better understanding of participles and commas and their placements will help you understand any comprehension better. We'll do this entire theory in depth in a while. So let's take you to the next level of confusion and help you eliminate those confusion also. So let's begin with the first of the verbals, that is gerund. Before that, did I define verbal? Do you know what is verbal? If I didn't, so please write down the definition. Verbals basically are words formed from a verb but is not functioning as a verb. You can write it in this fashion: a word that is formed from a verb but is not functioning as a verb is called as verbal. Under this category we have infinitives, gerunds and participles. So currently we'll be discussing gerunds and participles, and we'll be taking care of infinitives in another video. So let's see what is gerund. As given in the introduction, gerund has the force of a noun and a verb, and it ends in ing. Please note this carefully. Gerund may function as the subject or object of a verb, as a complement of a linking verb, or as the object of a preposition. Let's see a couple of examples. You can see all these words, all the verb gerunds are ending in ing: swimming, boxing, reading, digging. So let's see. Here, swimming is a good exercise. Swimming is behaving as a gerund, here is acting as a noun and is a subject for the verb is. Here the main verb is itself. In the next sentence, she still likes boxing. Here the verb is likes, and boxing is the object for the verb likes. Here it is, the swimming is the subject for the verb is. In the next sentence, my favorite hobby is reading. Have I discussed complement and linking verb? If you have not gone through the video of linking verb, then you'll be able to understand it better if you just go through it once. Here is the main verb, which is behaving as the linking verb. So whatever follows the linking verb is either a noun or an adjective. Here reading is behaving as a noun, and it is also called the complement of the linking verb is. Hope you remember complement and linking verb. Okay, let's move on to the next sentence. This tool is used only for digging. Here digging is the gerund, and it is acting as the object of the preposition for. We will see a couple of other examples where gerunds are also being modified by adjectives. A gerund may be modified. Let's see the examples. My new interest is organic gardening. So gardening is the gerund, and organic is modifying what kind of gardening? Organic gardening. So it is the adjective. Let's see the next sentence. Your future depends on working vigorously toward a realistic goal. In this case, you can see that working is the object for the preposition on, and it is the gerund. Let's see the next sentence. Hoarding groceries in times of shortage leads to greater shortages. What we can do here for a faster and better understanding is that we can put this groceries in times of shortage in parenthesis, and we have a simple sentence now. Hoarding leads to greater shortages. So leads is the verb here, and hoarding is the subject of verb leads. So we can see that whatever we have gone through, all the examples, the gerunds behave as the subject object complement of a linking verb or object of a preposition. And gerunds are formed from verbs by adding ing. For example, sleep, dig, hoard. All these words are verbs plus ing. When they're added with plus ing, they behave as gerunds when aptly used in a sentence. They are not always gerunds. Please keep this in mind. They are not always gerunds. If I have a sentence like Tom is sleeping, in this case sleeping is a verb, in fact the main verb of the sentence. It is not a gerund. But if I write it in this fashion, sleeping is good for health, in this case sleeping acts as a gerund and it has the force of a noun. So let's move on to the more important aspect, more important topic, that is participles. So now next let's move to the next verbal, that is participle phrases or simply participles. By definition, a participle is a verb form that has the force of a verb and an adjective, as discussed in the introductory session or the earlier lecture. A participle is a verb form that has the force of a verb and an adjective. While a present participle ends in ing, a past participle ends in ed, d, n or n. For example, learnt for t, written, or the most common one is ed, received, for example. So before I get into the details of types of participles and how they modify and behave as adjectives, I want to just scroll down through all these examples and see where are the participles, if you can locate the participles, and be very cautious about the location of the participles, whether they are in the beginning of the sentence, in the middle of the sentence, or at the end of the sentence. So I will run through the sentences along with you. Let's go through them. Knocking at the gate, Ram demanded admission. So here we have participle as knocking. It's an opening, in the opening. Loudly shouting for help, the old woman ran out of the house. Shouting. Blinded by a dust storm, the group fell into disorder. Blinded. Deceived by his friends, he lost all hope. Deceived. Driven by hunger, he stole a piece of bread. Driven. Coming out of the departmental store, John's wallet was stolen. Coming out, or just coming. The girl swimming in the pool is mine. Swimming. The girl killed in the accident was my only sister. Killed. Coming out of the departmental store, John realized that his wallet was stolen. Again, coming out. The toy bought last week was broken by the child. Bought. The child, thinking all was safe, attempted to cross the road. Thinking. The growth of the railroads led to the abolition of local times, determined by when the sun reached the observer's meridian and differing from city to city, and to the establishment of regional times. Here we have two participles, determined and differing. They have been made bold beforehand. In the next sentence, Rohit, determined to top the exam, studied 12 hours a day. Next, we met a girl carrying a basket of flowers. He saw a monkey coming out of the kitchen. The manager reprimanded the man pounding on the table. He saw a monkey coming out of the kitchen. Again, I think so we did these two sentences in the introductory session. The manager reprimanded the man pounding on the table. Again, here you can see there is a subtle difference between these two sentences because of this comma. We'll discuss this in depth. He crossed the English Channel swimming as fast as he could. Swimming. The Hubble telescope detected 3 new planets in the outer space, bringing to 16 the number of planets discovered this year. He danced the whole night, causing his legs pain. So let's see what is participles in true sense and how they can behave. Let's analyze their behavior. Participles can act as main verbs or they can introduce modifiers. Basically, they are indicators of cause and effect relations. We'll see how they indicate cause and relation in a short while. Whenever a participle is assisted by an auxiliary verb or is preceded by an auxiliary verb, it functions as a verb. For example, has been playing or has played. In this case, it is behaving as a verb. When it acts as a verbal, when it is not being assisted by an auxiliary verb. Usually ends with ing or ed, functions as adjective in a sentence. For example, it is difficult to calm a frightened child. So frightened here is nothing but a participle which is giving us the information about child. So it is behaving as a modifier. So participles can act as main verbs. As you can see here, Sita is singing. The ball was kicked by Tom. Singing is the participle, kicked is the participle which is being assisted by the auxiliary verb is and was. This is not of much of our concern currently, so let's move on to the more important role of participles. Participles can introduce modifiers. Very, very important. There are 3 kinds. They have been broadly classified as opening modifiers, middle modifiers, and end modifiers. Now, end modifiers can be introduced by participles, present participles, or past participles. Let's see. We will analyze them one by one. Opening modifiers introduced by participles. We have an opening modifier, a subject, and a predicate. Whenever we have an opening modifier introduced by participle, the opening modifier will modify the subject or tell us more about the subject of the following clause. Opening modifiers always modifies the subject of the following clause. Opening modifier is non-essential in nature. So that means that if we remove the opening modifier, we can still make sense of the entire statement. Let's see how. Knocking at the gate, Ram demanded admission. If we remove knocking at the gate, we can still make sense that Ram demanded admission. But if we just have knocking at the gate, it does not make any sense. So knocking at the gate Who is knocking at the gate? Ram is knocking at the gate. So knocking is modifying Ram. That who is the subject of the following clause. Shouting for help, the old woman ran out of the house. Here the participle is shouting. This is modifying the subject of the following clause, which is woman. Please note that loudly is not the participle, it is just modifying shouting. So what is the subject of the following clause? The subject of the following clause is woman. The old words, the old are just modifiers of woman. They are just adjectives. Okay. So let's move to the next sentence. Blinded by a dust storm, the group fell into disaster. Blinded is modifying group. Deceived by his friends, he lost all hope. Deceived. Who lost hope? He lost hope. So it's modifying the subject of the following clause. Driven by hunger, he stole a piece of bread. Driven is again modifying he. Coming out of the departmental store, John's wallet was stolen. So coming out of the departmental store, John's wallet was stolen. So this is fairly correct. No, the last sentence is not correct. This is wrong because it's telling that John's wallet was coming out of the departmental store, which is not feasible, which is not logically feasible. John's wallet cannot come out of the departmental store. What can happen is, coming out of the departmental store, John realized that his wallet was stolen. So who was coming out of the departmental store? John was coming out of the departmental store and he realized that his wallet was stolen. So this statement is wrong. So hope you understood. Present participle or the past participle opening modifier modifies the subject of the following clause, but we need to be very careful if it logically makes sense also. So let's move to the next type of modifier, middle modifier introduced by participles. Let's see their characteristics. Essential middle modifiers introduced by participles. So they are essential in nature. They are not separated by commas. They refer back to the immediately preceding noun. They identify the noun that they modify. We'll be able to understand it better by examples. So let's analyze. The girl swimming in the pool is mine. Swimming in the pool is mine. So let's match them with the characteristics. The girl swimming in the pool. So we have this in parentheses, the girl is mine. It's a very generic statement, but if we just add swimming in the pool, so it is identifying with the girl. So which girl is mine? The one who is swimming in the pool is mine. So it becomes very specific. Whenever it is not separated by a comma, then the middle modifier will always modify the noun preceding it. So swimming in the pool, swimming is modifying girl. Okay, so let's see the next sentence and we will notice that same things apply here as well. The girl killed in the accident was my only sister. So let's put this in parentheses again to understand it better. The girl killed in the accident was my only sister. The girl was my only sister. Which girl was my only sister? The one who was killed in the accident. So again, it is identify the noun. Killed in the accident is modifying the girl, and it is the preceding. The girl is the preceding noun. Coming out of the departmental store, John realized that his wallet was stolen. So you see that error which we had earlier seen has been rectified here, and it correctly mentions coming out of the departmental store, John realized that his wallet was stolen. The toy bought last week was broken by the child. Again, let's do the same operation. The toy was broken by the child. The toy bought last week. Again, specifies which toy was broken by the child. Okay. We have the next one. Non-essential middle modifiers introduced by participles. As the name itself states, non-essential, that means they just give us the additional information about the noun, and if we remove this entire modifier, that will not make a difference in the statement. Other characteristics, they are separated by commas, important. They refer back to the immediately preceding noun. They give additional information about the noun and do not try to identify the noun. Let's see a couple of examples. The child, thinking all was safe, attempted to cross the road. Thinking all was safe, which has been separated by a comma here and comma here. So please note, two commas there have been put separately. The child, comma, thinking all was safe, comma, attempted to cross the road. So thinking all was safe is modifying the child. The growth of the railroads led to the abolition of local times. Okay, I will leave this question or this statement right now, and we will discuss this in one of the illustrations. Okay, let's move to the next sentence. Rohit, determined to top the exam, studied 12 hours a day. So you see, determined to top the exam is giving a additional information about Rohit, and it is not trying to identify with Rohit. Okay, and it has been aptly put with two commas. So it falls under the category of non-essential middle modifiers introduced by participles. So determined is the participle here, and thinking is the present participle here. Okay, and determined is the past participle. So we move to the next kind of modifier, and modifiers introduced by present participles. And modifiers will be splitting with respect to present participle and past participle. Present participle and past participle. And modifiers introduced by present participles, they are not separated by commas. Okay, they refer back to the immediately preceding noun. Okay, let's see examples. We met a girl carrying a basket of flowers. They are not separated by commas. Okay, and they refer back immediately to the immediately preceding noun. That means carrying a basket of flowers is modifying girl. We met a girl carrying a basket of flowers. In the next sentence, he saw a monkey coming out of the kitchen. Since it is not separated by commas, coming is modifying the immediately preceding noun, which is monkey. So who is coming out of the kitchen? The monkey is coming out of the kitchen. The manager reprimanded the man pounding on the table. First we need to trace the participle, the present participle, pounding, which is not separated by a comma, so it will modify the preceding noun. The manager reprimanded the man pounding on the table. So who is pounding on the table? The man is pounding on the table. Please do not mistake it for the manager is pounding on the table. Okay, that will be correct if we have a comma here. So we'll see it in the next slide. They generally refer back to the subject of the previous clause, or they express the result of the previous clause. In such cases, generally, once again, generally refer back to the verb in the previous clause. Why have I mentioned generally in both these cases? Because in each of these cases we have one exception. In this video I will not discuss those exceptions, rather I'll take them over when I am discussing modifiers chapter. So let's see the examples. He saw a monkey coming out of the kitchen. Here the participle is coming, which is modifying the subject of the previous clause. So what is the subject of the previous clause? Subject of the previous clause is he. So coming is modifying he and is giving an additional information about him. So who is coming out of the kitchen? He is coming out of the kitchen, not the monkey. Let's see the next question, next example. The manager reprimanded the man pounding on the table. The participle is pounding, which is separated by a comma, so it should modify the subject of the previous clause. The subject of the previous clause is manager, so pounding on the table modifies the manager. So who is pounding on the table? The manager is pounding on the table. In the earlier example illustration where we did not have this comma over here, the pounding was modifying the man. So this is a subtle difference which you need to realize and be careful about. The next sentence we have, he crossed the English Channel swimming as fast as he could. Swimming, again it is modifying he, the subject of the previous clause. The Hubble telescope detected 3 new planets in the outer space, bringing to 16 the number of planets discovered this year. So the participle here is bringing. In this case, the entire act is bringing the number to 16. The Hubble, please be careful, the Hubble telescope is not bringing, the entire act is bringing the number to 16. So here it is expressing a result. This would fall in the second category, that is, they express the result of the previous clause. In such cases, they refer back to the verb in the previous clause. So basically, bringing is referring back to the act of detection. The act of detection is bringing the number to 16. So I hope it's clear over here. It is a little more difficult than the earlier ones and you need to analyze them better. However, need not worry, we'll be discussing a lot more, many questions where you'll be able to clarify your concepts. So let's move to the next one. Oh, this is the easiest of all and my favorite, of course. End modifiers introduced by past participles not separated by commas. End modifiers introduced by past participles past participles ed, t, en, and n. When they are not separated by commas, they refer back to the immediately preceding noun. They refer back to the immediately preceding noun. N modifiers introduced by past participles separated by commas, they also refer back to the immediately preceding noun. So there is not much of a fight. So this is very easy. We'll do an example also in the upcoming videos. Let's revisit the concept. When participle combine with helping verbs, they indicate tense and do not function as modifiers. Very true. I am calling. So am is the auxiliary verb or the helping verb, and calling is hence behaving as the main verb, and they're helping us to know the tense. They indicate tense, so they're helping us to know the tense. So I am calling, so it is in the present continuous tense. She has called. Again, the participle here called is assisted with has, which is the helping verb here. So she has called is also letting us know about the tense of the sentence. Participles are also used as adjectives, which we have already done actually. So let's see. Used cars are on sale. So used is modifying, or it's qualifying cars. What kind of cars? Used cars are on sale. The hotel also has a swimming pool. So swimming is the participle here, and it is qualifying pool, and it's describing pool, giving more information about pool. We can also see it in this fashion. The hotel has a pool. What kind of pool? A swimming pool. So it's behaving as an adjective. The participle is behaving as an adjective here. Before I go ahead, let's revise the concepts of participle, and let me give you a summary for a better understanding of participles. I have drawn a tree line summary of the participles. So let's begin. As discussed, participles can behave as main verbs, or they can introduce modifiers. When they act as main verbs, they are assisted with a helping verb. For example, I am dancing. Here dancing is the participle and am is the helping verb. So let's move on to the more important aspect, that is it introduces modifiers. It introduces modifiers by three methodologies: opening modifier, middle modifier, and the third one is end modifiers. There's less space, so that's why I'll be discussing end modifiers on the next page. However, you can draw it on the same page if you have a bigger page. Okay. Opening modifiers. As discussed, opening modifiers, they modify the subject of the following clause. So opening modifier will modify or give us information about the subject of the following clause. See, I've drawn a small formula type, you can call it diagram, for faster learning and understanding. So let's move to the next stage, that is middle modifiers. Middle modifiers are two kinds: essential and non-essential. Essential ones are not separated by comma. They are not separated by comma. They refer back to the immediately preceding noun and they identify the noun they modify. For example, the child swimming in the pool is mine. So the participle swimming is identifying the particular child, and it is also giving the information that the one who is swimming in the pool belongs to me. Okay, so in this case, noun, ing participle or ed participle not separated by a comma, see there is no comma here, will modify the preceding noun. Other kind is non-essential, which are separated by a comma. They refer back to the immediately preceding noun and give additional information. For example, Tom, determined to top the exam, studied 12 hours a day. In this case, we can give a diagrammatic representation as such by a comma, ing or ed. These two represent the modifiers, the participles, and they refer back to the immediately preceding noun. So I hope it's clear to you. Whenever we have a comma, it refers back to the preceding noun, and wherever we do not have a comma, it also refers back to the preceding noun. But in the first case, it tries to, in the case of essential modifiers, it identifies the noun they modify, and in the second case, it just gives additional information. Okay, let's move to the end modifiers. End modifiers. Now, end modifiers, I have categorized them in present participle and past participle. Okay, introduced by those modifiers which are introduced by present participle and past participle. Those modifiers which are introduced by present participles not separated by a comma, so let's draw the diagram here. Ing participle and others. Okay, they refer back to the immediately preceding noun. So they refer back to the immediately preceding noun. Simple, very simple. We have done ample number of questions and illustrations in this case. When they are separated by a comma, remember this is the tricky one. They refer back to the subject of the previous clause. So I need to mention a subject and noun, what if it is there. So they refer back to the subject of the previous clause, or they express the result. In that case, they generally refer back to the verb of the previous clause. Okay, I hope it's clear to you. Now let's move to the next end modifier, that is past participle, introduced by past participle, not separated by comma. These are the simple ones, not separated by comma. EDN modifiers, they refer back to the previous noun. Okay, they always refer back to the previous noun. Okay, the ones separated by comma, they also refer back to the previous noun, preceding noun, but in this case it is generally. There is one exception attached to it, which I'll be discussing in modifiers chapter. Okay, Let me give you one additional tip. In case of end modifiers introduced by present participles, we do not talk of essentiality or non-essentiality of the modifier. Okay, that's the three-line summary. Now let me go ahead and give you a small exercise as to how you can differentiate between a gerund and a participle. Gerund versus present participle. As both gerund and present participles end in ing, they must be carefully distinguished. Gerund has the force of a noun and a verb. Present participle has the force of an adjective and a verb. Let's do this small exercise. I'm pretty sure all of you will get it correctly. My favorite hobby is reading. Reading, it is behaving as a gerund here. Swimming is a good exercise. It is also behaving as a gerund. He crossed the English Channel swimming as fast as he could. Here it is behaving as present participle separated by a comma, so it will modify the subject of the previous clause, he. You need to remember that subject and object are nouns. So in the previous case, swimming is the subject also. The banks resorted to the less lending and a tight credit policy, lending only against high value sureties. So what is the participle here? It is behaving as a gerund. The banks resorted to the less lending, okay, where it is giving the force of a noun, and less is modifying lending and is behaving as adjective. In the second lending is separated by a comma and it is behaving as present participle modifier. So whenever a present participle end modifier is separated by a comma, it refers back to the previous subject. We can see that lending is referring back to the banks. So who is lending? The banks are lending only against high values. Let's see the next example. Writing scholarly papers rapidly may lead to several errors. So writing here is the gerund. Subject of the verb may lead, and it is scholarly papers rapidly. They are simply giving additional information, so they are adjectives, noun, adverb. Okay, the next sentence, writing rapidly he completed the assignment. Writing is behaving as present participle here, opening modifier. So whenever we have opening modifier, and then it should refer to the subject of the following clause. So it's modifying here. Hope it's clear. Cutting quickly to the bone helped the surgeon find the source of the infection that threatened the patient's life. Once again, cutting is the gerund. We can actually remove this entire sentence. This phrase, cutting helped the surgeon find the source of infection. Okay, these two are important. Let's see them very carefully. Cutting quickly to the bone, the surgeon found the source of the infection that threatened the patient's life. Here cutting is behaving as a present participle, which is giving more information about the surgeon. It's modifying the surgeon. It's an opening modifier starting with ing, so it will refer to the subject of the following clause. So the subject of the following clause is the surgeon. So I hope you must have understood by now the difference between participles and gerunds. While we are doing more illustrations in our examples, when we do more illustrations, you'll be able to understand this even better. So go through the other videos also. For give it a closure, you need to go through the video on infinitives also, so that your topic on verbals is complete. Okay, please go through infinitives. Thank you very much.